Hi guys, and welcome back to Semajical Reviews for our silver episode. That's right, episode 25, guys. Wow, no. And what am I reviewing for episode 25? Oh, back to the Simpsons, but an entire season this time. We're traveling all the way back to season 1, 1989 through 1990. The first ever season of the cartoon, which would surely become a hit after its initial 13 episodes. That's right, 13 episodes in this season, and sorry about that. And all very much so very early Simpsons classics at their finest. Well, in terms of story and stuff, but so what happens throughout this season? Well, in Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire, which is the initial episode of the series and kind of acted as its pilot, so to speak, the Simpsons family Christmas is almost ruined when Homer doesn't receive his Christmas bonus, and Bart gets a tattoo with Mother on it thinking Marge would like it, and she has to spend all the family's Christmas money having the tattoo surgically removed. While Homer gets a part-time job at the mall working as a Santa to try and make money for Christmas. But instead, because they only paid him out $13, they go to the Springfield Downs dog racing stadium and end up adopting Santa's little helper. That's a pretty solid first episode of a series, wouldn't you say? In Bart the Genius, Bart fakes, that's right, Bart fakes his intelligence level by cheating on an IQ test. And ending up with a score of 216, he ends up being sent to a school for gifted children, even though he's no gifted child by his intellect, which he has hardly any of. Because the paper he switched for his was Martin's. Yes, Martin Prince. In Homer's as a passable second episode, should I say, you don't need a high IQ to watch that. Okay. In Homer's Odyssey, after Homer loses his job to Bart distracting him on a field trip, he has to go far and wide to find a new job, only to land up as safety inspector back at the place he first lost his job, the nuclear power plant. Wow. If you let this episode distract you from your work, you're fired. In There's No Disgrace Like Home, Homer takes his family to a company picnic where he himself winds up being embarrassed by his family's behaviour. So he takes them to family therapy, and this is where we're introduced to Dr. Marvin Monroe for the first time. And needless to say, the family therapy doesn't go well. For Homer at least, because this family sees him as an ogre. Not too far off from his behaviour though, is it? So well, And don't be embarrassed by this episode, because it's still a good one. So, in Bart the General, Bart is being bullied by Nelson months after defending Lisa from one of Nelson's cronies. This is Nelson's first appearance in the show as well. And so he goes and gets help from Grandpa Simpson, whose first appearance was in Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. But this would be his first appearance since then. So, yeah. So... And so he forms together an army of kids to fight back against Nelson with Grandpa Simpson's help and the help of Herman, the owner of the military antique store, who we meet in this episode for the first time. But don't go on a warpath if you see this episode. It's just an entertaining thrill ride. In Moaning Lisa, Lisa's feeling too sad to do anything, and this includes playing dodgeball. So she's sent home with a behaviour report for that. And yes, in case you're wondering, the title is a play on the Mona Lisa. So... and Marge then ends up learning just to let Lisa be sad instead of trying to make her happy again. After all attempts to cheer her up fail. But though, don't go getting blue just by seeing this episode. It's still a good one. In The Call of the Simpsons, Homer buys a run-down, shabby RV in order to try and compete with Flanders' top-of-the-range one. And this would be the Flanders' first appearance in the show. No, it wouldn't. First appearance in the show since the first episode. And Homer takes his family on a trip in the wilderness in this shabby RV, only to then end up destroying the vehicle, and Homer being mistaken for Bigfoot. Oh, hilarious! How that could happen to Homer. Oh, yes. Okay. Go wild with this episode. It's one of the best in the season. In The Telltale Head, Bart takes the head off the Springfield Town statue to make a gang of bullies like him. And this ends up with him trying to flee from an angry mob while trying to return the head. Homer helps him, of course, after he owns up to it. And it's a pretty telltale episode. You should definitely give it a watch. In Life on the Fast Lane, Homer gives Marge a bowling ball as a birthday present. And this leads her to take up bowling as a new hobby, where she meets Shaq, a professional bowler who teaches her how to bowl. And yes, okay. I think I'll leave the description of the episode here and say that you'll get bowled over if you watch this episode. It's a great one. In Homer's Night Out, Homer goes out for a boys' night out when a stag do comes up for one of his colleagues, his supervisor. And this then leads, because in this episode Bart also gets a spy camera, this leads Bart to take a photo of Homer dancing with a floozy named Princess Cashmere, which then leads to Marge throwing Homer out of the house for the first time in the series' history. And this then culminates in Homer trying to teach Bart about how bad it is to objectify women. Even though he was doing that himself. Okay. In the Crepes of Rock... sorry. My opinion of the episode. It is, it's okay. It's an okay episode. It's... You know... That, yeah. So in the Crepes of Wrath, after a prank gone horribly wrong, flushing a cherry bomb down the toilet, makes a stall with Agnes Skinner, whose first appearance it is in this episode, explode, Homer recommends a foreign exchange program, which means Bart is sent to France, while the Simpsons get an Albanian boy for 3 months. And while Bart's in France, he is treated horribly by his exchange or his foster parents, who just turn out to be evil. He's in a country where at first he speaks no French, so he doesn't speak their language until something happens to make him speak it. And it is a good episode, and yes, the title is a play on The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. And I also forgot to mention that The Telltale Head is a play on The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe, and Call of the Simpsons is a play on Call of the Wild, but I can't tell you who that's by. But anyway, moving on. To my opinion of The Crepes of Wrath. It's okay. It's not one of the best episodes of the series. Then Krusty gets busted. Krusty, he makes his first appearance in this show, by the way, in this episode, is arrested for an armed robbery. And we later find out that it was his assistant, Sideshow Bob, who also makes his first appearance in this show proper, in this episode, because he wanted revenge. So he framed Krusty by dressing up as him and robbing the Quickie Mart. And it's down to Bart and Lisa and Maggie's detective skills to clear Krusty's name, which they do. And this episode is actually a good lesson on jumping to the wrong conclusions and falsely accusing people of doing something they haven't done. You shouldn't do that. So that's why it's one of my favourite episodes, not of just this season but of the whole series. And finally, in some enchanted evening, Homer and Marge go out on a date. Well, they just go out for the evening, leaving the kids in charge of a babysitter called Miss Botts, who turns out to be the babysitter bandit. Oh my word. She actually imprisons the kids by tying them up and forcing them to watch Happy Little Elves, much to Bart's dismay. And okay guys, now a little bit of information that you might be unaware of about this episode. It was actually supposed to be the pilot. Yeah, this episode was supposed to be the pilot episode. So, but it got pushed back to the end of the season. Because obviously the actual pilot ended up being the Christmas episode we've already talked about. So, and it is a brilliant way to end the first season. As a whole, the season is good in places and okay in others, but there isn't a bad episode in the bunch. So, and if you have any nostalgic memories of watching this season on TV as it originally aired, let me know in the comments below. if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching and have us a magical time.